In the spring of 1981, the Sierra Nevada mountains cradled the small town of Ketty, California, a place where the air smelled of pine, and the nights were so quiet you could hear the stars. Cabin 28 at the Ketty Resort stood at the edge of this fading retreat, its wooden walls weathered by time and neglect. Once a bustling haven for vacationers, the resort had dwindled into a collection of low-rent cabins, home to families like the Harpers, who sought refuge from lives left behind. Clara Harper, a single mother of 5, had moved her family to Cabin 28 the previous fall. She fled an abusive marriage in the East, chasing a fresh start near her brother in nearby Quincy. At 36, Clara was resilient. Her dark hair often pulled back as she juggled part-time work at the local lodge and night classes to become a typist. Her children, 15-year-old Daniel, 14-year-old Sarah, 12-year-old Emily, 10-year-old Ben, and 5-year-old Tommy, were settling into the rhythm of rural life. The cabin, though cramped, was a sanctuary, its living room warmed by a wood stove, its 2 bedrooms filled with the clutter of a family rebuilding. On the evening of April 11, 1981, the air was crisp, the sky a deep indigo. Sarah had gone to a sleepover at the neighboring cabin just 15 feet away, where the Miller family lived. Daniel and his friend, 17-year-old Luke Carter, had spent the day in Quincy, catching a ride back as dusk settled. Clara stayed home with Emily, Ben, and Tommy, along with Tommy's friend, 12-year-old Jamie Miller, who had come to spend the night. The cabin was alive with the usual chaos. Laughter, the clatter of dishes, the hum of a TV in the background. Emily had wanted to join Sarah at the Millers, but Clara insisted she stay home, a decision that would haunt the town for decades. By morning, everything had changed. Sarah returned to Cabin 28 at 7:45 a.m., her church clothes forgotten in the rush of the previous night. She pushed open the creaky front door and froze. The living room was a scene from a nightmare. Clara lay on her side near the sofa, her body bound with electrical wire and medical tape, her face bloodied from brutal blows. Daniel and Luke were sprawled nearby, their hands tied, their skulls battered. Blood streaked the walls, the ceiling, the furniture, a silent scream of violence. Sarah's scream shattered the morning stillness as she stumbled back to the Miller's cabin, her voice raw with terror. The Millers called the Plumas County Sheriff's Office, and soon deputies swarmed the scene. Amid the chaos, Sarah remembered Ben, Tommy, and Jamie, still in the back bedroom. Miraculously, the boys were unharmed, having slept through the horror. They were ushered out through a window to spare them the sight of the carnage. But Emily was gone. The 12-year-old, who'd been in the cabin that night, had vanished without a trace. The investigation began with urgency, but quickly faltered. The crime scene was a mess of evidence. 2 bloodied knives, a claw hammer, medical tape, but no clear answers. The telephone was off the hook, the lights were out, and the drapes were drawn tight, suggesting a calculated act. Deputies interviewed neighbors, including Carl Miller, a handyman who lived 2 cabins away with his wife Ellen and son Jamie. Carl was volatile, his marriage strained, and rumors swirled that Clara had been counseling Ellen to leave him. He'd also mentioned losing a hammer recently, a detail that raised eyebrows when a similar tool was found near the crime scene years later. Another figure, a drifter named Frank, who'd been staying with the Millers, drew suspicion. He claimed a murky past as a Chicago cop, but his stories didn't add up. Both men were questioned, but the sheriff's office, led by a soon-to-retire sheriff, seemed overwhelmed. The California Department of Justice sent agents, but their involvement only muddied the waters. Evidence was mishandled, leads ignored. A fingerprint on the cabin's back handrail went unidentified. Carl moved to Reno days after the murders, sending a letter to Ellen that chilled investigators when it surfaced years later. "I've paid the price of your love, and now I bought it with 4 people's lives." The town of Ketty, already fading, unraveled. Tourists stopped coming, cabins stood empty, and the resort became a ghost town. Sarah, now an orphan, moved in with her uncle in Quincy, haunted by the image of her family's slaughter. The surviving boys, Ben and Tommy, struggled to make sense of a world that had collapsed overnight. Emily's disappearance gnawed at the community. Was she the target? Had she seen something that made her a liability? The FBI briefly treated her case as an abduction, but their search yielded nothing. 3 years later, in April 1984, a bottle collector in Butte County, 100 miles away, stumbled across a human skull near Camp 18. Nearby were a child's blanket, a blue nylon jacket, jeans with missing pocket, and an empty medical tape dispenser. A forensic pathologist confirmed the remains were Emily's. An anonymous call to the Butte County Sheriff's Office had tipped them off, claiming the skull belonged to the girl from Keddy. The call, eerily specific, was never traced, its recording lost in evidence boxes until rediscovered decades later. The case grew colder, but its shadow lingered. By 2013, Sheriff Greg Hagwood, who'd known Daniel and Luke as a teenager, reopened the investigation. He brought in Mike Gamberg, a retired deputy, with a personal stake in the case. They sifted through neglected files, finding Carl's letter in the anonymous calls tape. In 2016, a hammer was found in a pond near Cabin 28, matching Carl's description of his lost tool. In 2018, DNA from a medical tape matched a living suspect, though Gamberg wouldn't name them. "We're closer than ever," he told reporters, his voice heavy with resolve. Sarah, now in her 40s, lived quietly in Oregon, a mother herself. She rarely spoke of that April morning, but the questions burned. Why was Emily taken? How did the boys sleep through the slaughter? Was it Carl, driven by rage over Clara's interference? Or Frank, whose lies hinted at darker secrets? Some whispered of a cover-up, pointing to the sheriff's hasty exit and the Department of Justice's odd involvement. Others believed the killers were long dead, their motives buried with them. Keddy is a ghost town now. Cabin 28 demolished in 2004, its lot overgrown with weeds. But the story of that night endures, a wound that won't heal. For Sarah, the surviving boys, and the investigators who refuse to quit, the truth is a phantom, always just out of reach. In the silence of the Sierra Nevada, where the pines whisper secrets, the shadow of Cabin 28 lingers, waiting for someone to finally speak its truth.